The Kansas City Royals climbed to the top of the MLB mountain in 2015 after winning over the hearts of fans across the world. Their fun and unique style of bullpen depth and stealing bases was a breath of fresh air, and quite honestly, the only way a franchise as cheap as the Royals was going to win that year. Since this day, however, the Royals have an abysmal 387 and 509 record at the time of this recording. Today I'm going to look at what went wrong with the Royals and how this attempted rebuild is currently failing. We start the timeline on December 7th, 2016. The Royals had just come off a disappointing 2016 campaign that saw the team finish 81 and 81. In search of getting the club back into the postseason, General Manager Dayton Moore made a confusing move at the time and an even more confusing move today. He traded All-Star closer Wade Davis to the Cubs in exchange for young power-hitting Jorge Soler. Fans were confused at the time because this sentiment around the team was that they were going all in again in 2017, but trading away your best bullpen piece for a hitter who was coming off a .238 average with 12 homers really didn't make much sense. Keep this move in mind because it's far from the last time that it'll be factored in. We fast forward into 2017 and something completely out of Dayton Moore or the Royals' control happened. Young star pitcher Yordano Ventura was tragically killed in an accident overseas and robbed. Ventura was one of the most important pieces to the Royals' success. When he was pitching well, the team was a contender. Losing him not only as a baseball player, but as a person inside the clubhouse completely disrupted future plans the organization had for 2017 and beyond. To be honest, this was when the Royals' window closed. Nobody realized it at the moment. Many, including myself, still believed the team would compete in 2017, but it was clear early that things were just not the same. Diving into the actual 2017 season, the Royals knew coming in that this might be the last chance with this core of players. Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, Lorenzo Cain, Alcides Escobar, and others were all due to become free agents after the season. With this in mind, and with paying them being unlikely, the Royals had one of two options. Go all in with this team one last time to hope to make another run, or trade off these guys at the deadline to acquire young prospects in the future. A lot of this was going to depend on how they looked before the July 31st trade deadline, and unfortunately the team found themselves in purgatory. On July 30th, the team sat at 55 and 48. Not bad enough to sell off the core, but not really good enough to win the division, and it was going to be really close as it pertains to making the second wildcard. Flashback to July 30th, 2014, however, the team sat at 53 and 51, with tons of fans pressuring the organization to make trades at the deadline. Dayton Moore stood pat and kept that same core of guys together, and they went on to finish 89 and 73, making a run to the World Series. I bring this up because I truthfully think it led to Moore's decision to hang on to his guys in 2017 and go on a run yet again. That core had already proven that they could do it in a very identical situation, so Moore decided it was worth to try again. It ended up being a bad gamble. The team finished 80 and 82, missed the playoffs, and now the organization was going to most likely lose the key contributors to its World Series run. I personally don't hate that Dayton didn't make the trades at the deadline. If you want to believe in your guys one last time, that's fine. But why trade away the best closer in baseball that offseason if you wanted to compete? If you're going to start selling, you can't do it halfway. It felt like the Royals flirted with the future while trying to win in the present, and in all honesty, it costed them. Jorge Soler would only appear in 35 games in 2017 with a 144 batting average and 2 home runs. It's really not crazy to say that if the Royals had just hung on to Davis, they could have gotten that coveted second wildcard spot, but instead, they finished about as average as possible. The dreaded offseason began, and after some quiet months, the guys finally started to flock. Lorenzo Cain signed a 5-year, $80 million deal to go back home to the Brewers. Eric Hosmer signed an 8-year, $144 million deal to go to the Padres, and Mike Minor signed with the Rangers. Mike Moustakas' market died down, and the Royals were able to bring him, along with Alcides Escobar, back, but at this point, it wasn't going to matter a ton. The Royals knew the season was going to be ugly, and so Dayton did the right thing by signing veterans in hope that they could be trade bait during the season. The first of those guys was Lucas Duda, who unfortunately added little to no value and ended up being traded for cash considerations. Another guy was John Jay, who actually worked out considerably well. In his short stint with the Royals, he batted .307 and was traded to the Diamondbacks in June for prospect Gabe Spearer, who is currently on the Royals' big league roster and has a career ERA of 3.6 in 30 innings of work. Nothing crazy, but getting something in value for John Jay was a success in its own. More moves like this would have the Royals looking a lot better currently. The following trade, however, was another huge mistake in this rebuild. the Royals traded reliever Kelvin Herrera to the Nationals in exchange for Kelvin Gutierrez, Blake Perkins, and Yohannes Morel. At the time of this trade, Herrera had an ERA of 1.05 in 26 innings. The Royals were right to sell high here, especially when they were losing. Herrera went out to have a 4.34 ERA the rest of the season with Washington, but the real loser is still Kansas City. Gutierrez played in just 62 games with the Royals before being cut, batting just .226 with 2 homers. He was a below-average fielder and is currently batting under .150 with Baltimore. Blake Perkins never appeared in a big league game for Kansas City. He was signed to a minor league free agent deal by the Yankees in 2021. Yohannes Morel is the last remaining hope for this trade, a 21-year-old currently in high A ball for the Royals. To be fair, he has pitched well in 2022, but is nowhere near the MLB level at the time of this recording. The next guy traded was Mike Moustakas, who was a big power bat teams wanted. The Royals dealt him to the Brewers for outfielder Brett Phillips and pitcher Jorge Lopez. Phillips would appear in 84 games for Kansas City before getting traded to Tampa for shortstop Lucius Fox, who never played a game in Kansas City. Jorge Lopez would appear in 47 games for the Royals before being cut and picked up by the Orioles. One of the big moves was a move that wasn't made, keeping Whit Merrifield. Whit batted over 300 and led the entire MLB in hits, but the Royals decided to keep him rather than flip him for prospects, which might not be as terrible as I thought looking back at how bad these trades have been. The team finished 58 and 104, which was dead last in the division. Heading into 2019, Dayton Moore went back to the sign-and-trade method he had done in 2018, signing speed demon Billy Hamilton and utility man Chris Owings in an attempt to bring in more prospects. He also brought in veteran closer Brad Boxberger and starter Homer Bailey. Chris Owings was a straight disaster, hitting .133 in just 40 games before being cut. To Moore's credit, however, these other guys kinda did what they were asked. Homer Bailey was traded to the Athletics after posting a 7-6 record with a 4.8 ERA in 90 innings. The Royals got back infielder Kevin Morrell, who was a 2017 second-round pick, but never panned out in KC and is now in the Twins minor league system. Brad Boxberger wasn't great and couldn't get dealt, but Jake Diekman brought in 2 prospects in Esmil Aquino and Duran Blanco. Blanco is yet to see the majors, but is still with the Royals as a depth outfielder at AAA, and Aquino has spent some time in low A ball before being cut. Billy Hamilton wasn't productive enough to find a trade partner, so the Royals cut him at the deadline to let other guys get their playing time. The organization yet again decided to hang on to Merrifield, even though they were nowhere near competing and Merrifield was probably peaking at this point. The team finished 59 and 103, and manager Ned Yost announced his retirement following the season. 2020 was weird for everyone, and a 60-game season made the whole trading veteran pieces deal a bit more tricky. The Royals were still able to pull off a move, dealing veteran closer Trevor Rosenthal to the Padres in exchange for Edward Olivares. This was one of the better moves we've seen during this rebuild. Edward has been hitting fairly well in his short time up in the big leagues and has a chance to be the Royals' right fielder moving forward. This was when not trading Merrifield got pretty questionable, however. For the 3rd straight season you weren't competing, Merrifield was getting older, and teams really wanted him. Hanging on to him did nothing as the Royals finished 26 and 34, missing the playoffs even in an expanded playoff field. The 2021 season was weird to say the least. Before it even began, the Royals brought back Mike Minor, Wade Davis, Gerard Dyson, and others in what I guess was an attempt to sell tickets? A big deal that went down before the season was the Royals bringing in outfielder Andrew Benintendi in exchange for prospect Khalil Lee. Fans were excited at the time because the team finally flipped from trading away big league talent to actually trading for it, but competing was still pretty far away. After a promising 15-8 start, the team stumbled through the summer and once again were selling at the trade deadline. They had many pieces to move, such as Whit Merrifield, again, Carlos Santana, Mike Minor, and other pieces contenders were eyeing, but opted to mostly hang on to what they had for whatever reason. The one move they did make was trading struggling slugger Jorge Soler to the Braves for single-A pitcher Casey Kalick. For those keeping track at home, yes, the Royals dealt prime all-star closer Wade Davis for a guy who ended up bringing in a single-A pitcher 4 years later. Not only did Dayton Moore kill the present with that trade back in 2016, but he also added no value to the future of the team. It was one of the biggest fails in franchise history. Soler hit 48 home runs in 2019, but that was on an 100-loss team. The timeline simply didn't make sense then, nor did it make sense when they made the trade. The team finished 74 and 88 in what was an improvement from past years, but nothing to celebrate. And that brings us to present day, 2022. The Royals look no better now than they did back when this rebuild began. While the season is still young, the club is on pace for 100-plus losses yet again, and this is now year 5 of the rebuild. This isn't solely because of being cheap or not getting the best value back in trades, it has a lot more to do with how the teams have drafted. Baseball isn't like other sports. High draft picks don't typically come in immediately and play, which makes being bad that much worse. But the Royals have now started to see some of their young picks play, and the early results are not good. In 2018, the team went heavy on college pitching, and that has looked rough here early. The team took Brady Singer 18th overall in what many consider to be a steal, but so far at the MLB level, Singer has posted a 9-15 record with a 4.67 ERA. He currently is back in AAA and is trying to develop further so he can produce better in his next stint. It's definitely not over for him by any means, but early results are bad. Speaking of bad early results, Jackson Kowar has a case to be the worst pitcher in the MLB since 2021. The second round pick has posted a horrendous 12.03 ERA in 34 big league innings and has a laughable negative 1.8 win above replacement in just 10 career games. The one pitcher who has shown potential with the next pick was Daniel Lynch. While his career ERA is north of 5, Lynch really calmed down towards the end of 2021 and has carried that over into 2022. Out of all the guys picked, he's the one so far I can legit say has a future in this rotation. The last pitcher from 2018 I want to highlight is Chris Bubich, because my goodness has he been bad. With an ERA north of 10 in 2022 and a negative 1 win above replacement already, the team has taken him out of the rotation and moved him into the bullpen, and even that might not be enough. Those keeping track, that's 4 pitchers taken high, with 2 being complete duds so far, 1 being below average, and 1 being average with potential. Not a great look for the class. In all honesty, the 2019 through 2021 classes are still fresh to me and hard to break down. Baseball is a developmental sport, and with the pandemic taking 2020 away, I feel like we can wait another year or so before hyper-analyzing those drafts. This was a very negative video. I understand that. My intention isn't to bash Dayton Moore or make the Royals organization look pathetic. It's truly not. The club actually has building blocks in Bobby Witt Jr., Nick Pratto, MJ Melendez, and others. But if things are run similar to the way that they have been, those guys might just be wasted like Merrifield and Perez have been these past 5 years. The clock is ticking, and 2022 is going to bring us a lot of answers as to what the future holds for this once proud franchise.